is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Just want to say thanks to Cliffy for filling in for me yesterday, flying solo. I was off doing a solo OnlyFans show for my premium subscribers. What's going on? No, I was in Philly at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia with my son's doctor's appointment. It was a normal visit. And then I was thinking to myself, there's nothing normal about taking your son to a children's hospital all the time. But, you know, I am so conditioned on it. So if I'm a little bit low energy, that's probably why. No matter how easy the visit is, I do get drained from it mentally. Mental health, take care of yourself. But anyway, interesting slate last night. You needed Colorado won. I faded them. I'm pretty sure the Hurricanes had like almost 7 expected goals last night. King Karel Vejmelka earned his name last night. I did see a couple of decent cashes in our Discord. A lot of people were like, yeah, I went to sleep and I woke up to a Mikko Rantanen natural hat trick. I was like, I went to sleep and I woke up to a Mikko Rantanen hat trick and I didn't have him. So I went from this end of the spectrum to that end of the spectrum. But yeah, 10-game slate tonight. Can't hit the nuts if you don't play. So that's why we're here. Joining me, as always, in the hat I will always mistake for a Knicks hat. What's going on, Cliffy?
It's literally got the NHL shield right on the front. Like I don't get it.
It's
anyway.
Blue and orange.
Yeah, not a whole lot going on. Just I didn't have Colorado either, so that was a pretty easy breezy night. 6 expected goals for Carolina, only 1 actual goal scored. 2019 all over again. 10 games tonight, couple massive favorites, couple pretty chalky spots. I think there are reasons to get away from the chalk, and we'll talk about that when we get to it, but I really like the slate. I think there are a lot of interesting matchups. There's a couple not really tickling the fancy, but I think for the most part, there's some really interesting matchups on both sides, like pretty much across the board. So even though it's a bigger slate than I typically like, we always talk about that 6, 7, 8, 9 game range. I still like this slate because I do think there are genuinely 7, 8 matchups where you can make cases for both sides.
Yeah, it's Barclay Goodrow night back in the Garden. I mean, technically, he's on a power play with Celebrini and Toffoli. So that's something.
And the top line.
Yeah. Ooh. Anyway, we should get into this slate. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you guys for all your support, just showing up and watching us, liking the video. If you do want to go premium, you can click on the link in the chat and sign up. We do actually have a very cool promo code for UFC 309 this weekend. They're in Madison Square Garden. Johnny Jones is defending his heavyweight belt, which is a scene in itself, against Stipe Miocic. But if you want access for $1, click the link in the chat. Use promo code BONES. That will get you access to Sims. It'll get you access to everything we have for MMA. The Sims are great. I love it for MMA. I mean, obviously I love all the Sims, but MMA I do my best work with. So click the link in the chat. Use promo code BONES. You can get access to everything for this weekend for $1. You can sign up for a month too if you want. Obviously, the first week will be $1. So check that out. Should be a good card this weekend. 13 fights, a couple heavyweight belt on the line. It's not going to be, Tyson Jake Paul, which is tomorrow night, but it's still going to be really good. I don't really care about that fight, but it's going to be like a car crash that you can't look away from. And speaking of car crashes, the Rangers aren't first. That was almost an epic transition. They're not first. But the Philadelphia Flyers are first with a 2.6 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.3 total. Our resident Senators fan was kind of upset with us, saying, are you guys ever going to admit that the Senators are a good defensive team at 5-on-5? And here's my short answer. No. But I will say they have improved since Zub has come back, which moved Hamonic down the lineup. They really should be healthy scratching him, but he is out on the third pair. They have improved their play. We'll see if they can keep it up. Consistency is an issue in Ottawa. What will you say? But this is an interesting matchup because Sam Urson got hurt in practice yesterday. He's not playing tonight. So at best, the Flyers have an AHL goalie starting tonight. I used the Senators the other night. It was okay, but it didn't work great. And both these top two lines are only 16,200. Norris, Tkachuk, Grieg, Batherson, Stützle, Giroux. They don't really have a huge top two stack percentage. The issue that I'm running into and why I kind of want to play them is the Flyers just don't have a goalie. If it was Urson, like Urson's not even the greatest goal. Like he's probably a backup at best in the NHL, but these guys are AHL. Kozlov or Fedotov. They're nothing special. So I do, if you're mid-range building, I don't mind Tkachuk, Norris, Grieg here, or even Stützle, Batherson, Giroux. I always tend to gravitate towards the Tkachuk line, but I will say that Stützle, Batherson, Giroux, like Giroux is just going to play the most minutes of any forward. You get Batherson and Stützle on the top power play unit. Not that this is a great power play spot, but again, the goalies, they're not great. So I'm completely fine with either the Ottawa top two lines. They have a 3.3 home total, which is honestly pretty funny. It is not even close to the highest on the slate, but 3.3 is nothing to sneeze at. And you're going to get these lines at 2.5% owned. I don't mind them, honestly. Am I going to get there in single entry? No. There's a lot of other spots that I like more. I might end up with a Brady Tkachuk one-off. You never know. I am a Tkachuk stan, a simp, whatever you want to call me. But I'm perfectly fine with the Ottawa top six here. The Flyer side is a little bit more interesting. Like, I don't mind Couturier, Tippett, Konechny. The issue that I'm running into here is they have one of the lowest totals on the slate, and they're 18,100. And you look at all these lines here tonight in that price range. You have Nashville around them, a little bit more expensive. You have some Minnesota lines just below them. You have the Devils lines right below them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really like the Flyers have a 2.6 road total in Ottawa. It doesn't really scream like play me, you know what I mean? But I don't mind that top line in MME. I don't think I'll get there in single entry. I would consider Ottawa in single entry. They're on the list. Don't think I'll get there, but I think Ottawa's a little sneaky play here tonight.
Yeah, I just straight up like the Sens here tonight. And it's because of the goalies, as you mentioned, with Fedotov and net. Fedotov has appeared in 7 games in his NHL career, and his goals saved above expected is negative 7.3. To put that into perspective, it's worse than Alexander Georgiev so far this season. And remember Georgiev's start to the season. Like Fedotov's just not been an NHL goalie. It is just 7 games, but it is a terrible, terrible 7 games. And until we get a sample with him at the NHL level, which we might not actually get if he keeps playing like this, you just have to assume it's a really, really bad goalie. So I do like the Ottawa side here. Like, the Flyers are they're a fine defensive team. Like, this isn't a great 5-on-5 matchup. It's not a great power play matchup. It's just a tremendous matchup against a very bad goalie. Like, Ottawa could honestly put up 4 goals on 20 shots here tonight. Like, that's the type of goaltending we're talking about. The question is just, like, which Ottawa line to go with. I don't mind either of them. Like, and it's not a situation where I would necessarily stack across lines for power play stacking. Like, I would probably just stack the even strength lines. I'm going to be honest, I would probably lean Stützle, Batherson, Giroux. The reason I would do that is because Stützle and Giroux typically get the most ice time. Those guys in the month of November have gotten the most ice time per game of any sense forward. And Batherson still gets good amounts of ice time. You know what I mean? Like Brady Tkachuk, sometimes there are some games he's like 16, 17 minutes. Ridley Grieg, there are games where he's down like 13 minutes. something like that. So like if they're the same price, coming in the same ownership, I'll take Stotts and Bathurst and Giroux just because they get more ice time. They have a slightly higher top 2 stack percentage. So that's where I am on Ottawa. I kind of agree with you on the Philly side. I don't dislike them here, especially where like the Philly power play, now that Mishkov isn't being healthy scratched, can at least be something close to league average. And, that's all we've been asking for from them. And they are perfectly correlated on the power play. If there has been a weakness to Ottawa this season, it has been the penalty kill. 6th most shots attempts against on the PK, 5th most shots against. The goals against outside or in the bottom half of the league. Like the Ottawa penalty kill can be had, but I'm going to be honest. I think on the Philly side, like rather than just full stack, I would, a Konechny one-off I think is just fine. Mitchkov one-off certainly is just fine. Tippett one-off, obviously. I think I'd be more inclined to one-off, run a 3-2-1 build and have my one guy be from the Flyers than I would be just a full stack them. So I think it's Ottawa 2 for me in this game, but I agree with you. The entire Ottawa top 6 is in play here.
Yeah. I don't know, Boom. You're gonna have to talk to the person who banned you, my man. I don't know. I'm not involved in that. Winnipeg Jets at the 3 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.4. Lightning have been off for a week, and Braden Point is still out. I'm kind of confused why they didn't put him on IR. Unless they did, and I missed it. But I don't know. Anyway, the lines are Kucherov, Hagel, Sorelli, Gensel, Paul, Atkinson, and then, the bottom 6. Winnipeg status quo here. This is an interesting one because the Winnipeg top line is 20,200. The Tampa Bay top line is 20,300, and it's not Connor Hellebuck in net tonight. It's Eric Comrie, which is a big deal because Hellebuck has been the best goalie consistently over the past 3 to 5 years. He had one iffy season, but all the other ones have been excellent. That puts Tampa 1 in play for me. Kucherov, Hagel, Sorelli, 15.8% top 2 stack, 8.3% projected ownership. Especially if they're going to go out against Scheifele, Connor Velarde. And Hagel, Sorelli usually take top comp. I don't know if it's changed that much since Point has gone out.
I mean, I would say whether it's the first line for Winnipeg or the second line from Winnipeg, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Like Connor, Scheifele, Velarde have done the majority of their damage on the power play. They're not a very good 5-on-5 line. I do have a lot of interest in Kucherov, Hagel, Sorelli. At the beginning of the day, I was like, you know what? That's a steep price to pay going up against Hellebuck. It's not Hellebuck now. They have positive leverage. It's a good power play spot. Like the Winnipeg penalty kill has been better than it's been in the past few years. But a lot of that has to do with Connor Hellebuck. So I have no issue going to Tampa 1 here. It's an interesting play playing them instead of the Rangers top line. I think it's a nice pivot off the Rangers Panarin line, who have a lot of ownership. So I'm good with Tampa 1 here. I think a Jake Gensel one-off is fine. I don't particularly love the assortment of Paul Atkinson Gensel. We've seen Mitchell Chaffee there. We've seen Connor Geeky up and down there too. So like I do worry that Atkinson won't last the full game there. So, Gensel one-off is fine. Tampa Bay 1 is fine. Winnipeg 1, also very interesting here. It's not the spot that, we loved against the Rangers the other night. Tampa's not as bad defensively as the Rangers. They're not great, though. And it's a pretty good power play spot. And there's almost no ownership on Winnipeg. And that's what's drawing me. There's some lines like 3, 4, 5%, like Ottawa 1, 0.6%, like on a 10-game slate. It's not a huge difference, but like when you get into the expensive 20K lines, right? You look at it, you have the Rangers at 20,400 pushing 15%. You have McDavid pushing 10%. You have the Minnesota Wild pushing 8%, this Tampa Bay line over 8%. And, then you see this Winnipeg Scheifele line, who's coming off one of their better games, under 1%. I'm not saying, I'm going to play them in single entry, but it's a little bit of a better matchup than it appears. So I don't mind them. Like, if I'm 20 maxing, I'll have one or two Winnipeg ones and I'm way over the field. Like, you kind of got to ride the wave a little bit, especially if you're 20 maxing. In single entry, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines in the top 2 stack that are more expensive right above them. That makes them hard to prioritize. But in MME, I think, getting a little bit over the field is a thing I would do, especially considering how they played recently. And this is a little bit better matchup than it appears.
Yeah, I'll start on the Winnipeg side. Like, I agree with you. It's not a bad spot for them, especially like Hagel. Even if they go out against Hagel and Sorelli are good defensively, but Nikita Kucherov is definitely a player that pushes offensively. You know what I mean? Like, he will make that line a little bit worse defensively. It's just that he makes them so much better offensively. It doesn't really matter. I think it's fine for Winnipeg 1. The thing is, like, for me in single entry with Winnipeg, the thing is like in that 19-ish to 21K-ish range, you have Nashville 1, you have this Tampa line, Nashville 1 under 5%, Tampa 1 under 9%, Edmonton 1 under 10%, Minnesota 1 under 8%. Like, even if those numbers come in up a little bit, there's still like 10% and under top lines that I really do like here tonight that aren't on the road. That I think I would rather play. So, like, I have no problem with Winnipeg 1. And I'll say a lot of their damage has come on the power play, but they are generating more at 5-on-5 lately. I was looking, like, they're up to 3.1 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5 in their minutes this season. That's actually pretty good for this line. So they are generating well at 5-on-5. It's just like, this line at 1% or, Tampa 1 at 8%. Like, for me, it doesn't really matter that much when I'm playing, single entry contests with like 400 or 500 people, as opposed to an MME with like 50,000, like an NFL or NBA or whatever. So, like, I do like Tampa 1 here. Hagel and Sorelli, like you said, have been really good this season. Over the last couple of years, it's a limited sample with Kucherov, but with, when Kucherov's been on their line, they're at 3.5 expected goals per 60, 5.1 actual goals per 60. Like, it's just absolutely bananas. And the big news, obviously, is that Sorelli was moved to the top power play unit. Here's the concern that I have, is we do have data going back almost a decade now that teams coming out of a bye week tend to struggle in their first game back. There's rust to knock off. I don't know why, but Tampa's been off for a week. Like, I know that that teams have bye weeks and stuff, but they were the only team off. And as far as I can tell, they're the only team off until December. So, like, it's just some scheduling quirk where they had a week off. That concerns me a little bit. I think teams have been more cognizant of that lately and have kind of figured out a way around it. I do prefer Tampa 1 here tonight. I think it would be either top line for me. Like you said, if you're playing 150 lineups, I would probably get maybe like 5 or 6 Winnipegs in there, just because they have been really good at 5-on-5. They have been really good on the power play. I just think at a similar price, I would just rather go over to the home team. And, another thing is that Tampa's total has gone from 3.1 to 3.4 since this morning. So obviously there's a lot of money coming in on the over here. So I do like Tampa 1 to just pile in the goals.
Yep. I do also worry about the week off. Like, there is pretty substantial data now since over the past 4 seasons. But if anyone can be lazy and tired and do what they need to do, it's Kucherov. You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy. New Jersey Devils with a 2.8 total heading into Florida. They're not heading into Florida. They've been in Florida. The Panthers have a 3.3 total. Florida mixing up their lines a little bit. Does look like Sam Bennett will be in the lineup tonight. They're going Reinhart, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Kachuk, Bachwist, and then Lundell, Luosterainen, and Evan Rodriguez. Devils are status quo. Like, this game's hard to prioritize in single entry as well. Reinhart, Barkov, Verhaeghe fully correlated at 22,000. They're the most expensive line of the night. Now, they have a decent total at home, but this is not a very good power play matchup. It's a decent 5-on-5 matchup, but the issue I'm running into, right, with 22,000 Florida 1 is you can get McDavid line for $1,400 cheaper. The Wild are cheaper. The Tampa we just talked about is cheaper. The Rangers second line is cheaper. You know what I mean? Like, they do have a good top two sack percentage, 15.4%, but like, it just keeps ringing in my head. And any team that plays Nashville now, I hear Cliffy going, they play slow. And who's the fastest skater in the league? Connor McDavid. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I have a hard time getting to Reinhart, Barkov, Verhaeghe in single entry when I can spend $1,400 less and get Connor McDavid. Now, it's a decent spot. If the power play spot was a little bit better, I'd say, yeah, they're more in play for me. But I have a hard time prioritizing them in single entry. And MME, I think, they're perfectly fine. Just a matter of how much you want. That's up to you. I don't make your lineups, but this line has historically been really, really good. Like, Barkov and Reinhart with anybody is good. You add in someone like Verhaeghe, they have excellent numbers together. Florida 2, I don't really like, for the sense that, like, they're kind of expensive, even with Bakwas there, and they have minutes issues. You know what I mean? Like, Kachuk's been playing like 17 minutes a night. Bennett was out last game. I don't mind that third line as a filler, Lundell, Lusterine, and Erod. Like, they were very good last year. They were very good in the playoffs. If you're, I don't mind a two-man of Lundell, Lusterine, or Lusterine and Erod, something like that. But it's hard for me to prioritize Florida on this slate. The Devils are kind of in the same boat. You know what I mean? They're like the Hughes, Bratt, Palat line, I think, kind of falls into that. I don't mind like a Hughes one-off, but I like 2.8 road total. You have Winnipeg with a 3 road total. You have Nashville with the 2.8 road total, and the Devils with like, again, it's not a great power play spot, and the Panthers aren't taking penalties. So I have a hard time prioritizing this game in single entry. I'm fine with both top lines. It's just, I don't think I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I will say there are minutes concerns for that Tkachuk Bennett line. In fact, I was looking earlier. I forget if it's 6 or 7 games since Barkov came back, but in that time, Anton Lundell is getting more even strength time per game than Matt Tkachuk is. That's kind of the concern that we're talking about here. Florida 1 I'll say this about Florida 1. They are interesting to me in this sense. Obviously you get perfect correlation on the power play. That's always a bonus. That's not something that happens very often with Florida. So I do have a little bit of interest in that. The other thing is the other night, they played a ton of minutes when they were kind of chasing the game. Like, I think Reinhart and Barkov were both around 23, 24 minutes. I don't think that they play that again, but it does, mean that, we could easily see a 21-minute game from the top line here tonight, especially where they're perfectly correlated. The other thing is like, there are a bunch of cheap lines across the slate that I don't mind here tonight. Like, we'll get to some of them later, but, Buffalo, Rangers, Chicago, Seattle, like, there are a bunch of like sub 12K lines that I think are very playable here tonight. That's what's kind of enticing me to Florida 1. Now, again, I do think there are lines in that, 20K-ish range, give or take $1,000, that I would probably rather go to, but Florida 1 is definitely in play for me. Like, you're right. Their numbers are excellent over the last couple of years. They're at 3.3 expected goals per 60 minutes. The only reason they haven't been scoring the lights out is because they're shooting 8%. Like, that's a line that'll probably shoot closer to 11% over a big sample. So They could be one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league if they stay together. That's kind of the thing that I'm running into. So I do like Florida 1. They are in the mix for me, just because there are a lot of cheap lines that I do like here tonight. If there weren't, I would probably not be as high on them. Really nothing for me from the New Jersey side. I don't mind going back to the Jack Hughes line. They got obliterated by Barkov the other night, though, by Barkov and Reinhardt. The Florida kind of ran them over. New Jersey was lucky to get Hughes and them were lucky to get the fantasy points that they got. But at least the Hughes line is up to 3.2 expected goals. That's slowly been climbing since they added Andre Palat onto the line. But I think they'd be more like a 20 max, certainly 150 max play for me. Single entry, I think for me in this game, it's either go to Florida 1 or just move on.
Yep. San Jose Sharks with a 2.2 total. Heading into Madison Square Garden, the Rangers have a 3.9. Do you think it's I don't know what the right word is here, grandstanding, that they put Goodrow on the top line just to say he's on the top line and then move him down in the game? I'm not sure, because they put him on the same power play unit as those guys.
See, if it was a case where you see this sometimes when a player returns, that they'll put him on the top line for the first shift of the game and then take him off so they can kind of give him a little applause or a welcome or whatever. The fact that they've been practicing like this for 2 days kind of tells me that they have interest in leaving him on the top line. So I don't think it's just going to be a one and done. I do think probably want to avoid doing that. So that's why I kind of do think unless the game gets out of hand, if the Rangers are up 4-0 in the second period, maybe they switch things up. But as long as it's anywhere close, I do think Gaudreau stays on the top line for now.
Yeah, and both their top two lines are fully correlated, I believe, because they're splitting their power play units for whatever reason. Macklin, Celebrini, Tyler Toffoli, Barclay Goodrow on the top line, Mikhail Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund on the second line. Rangers going back to their old lines, thank God, of Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, and Hedel, Cooley, Kako. The issue that I have with the Rangers are their defensive pairs still. Miller with Fox is going to be fine. Jones with Schneider, good. Lindgren, Trouba is going to be a disaster. You thought Miller Trouba was bad? Wait until you see Lindgren Trouba. And they're going to play. There's no way around that. Jones and Schneider are going to play 16, 17 minutes. Miller and Fox will play 20, 21. I'm willing to bet you Lindgren and Trouba are going to play 18 to 20 minutes here tonight. And that's a problem. I'm hopeful that Fox and Miller are going to go out with the Panarin line against Celebrini, Toffoli, Goodrow. And I think that's going to be the case. They wouldn't move Miller with Fox if they weren't going to go out against top comp, because he's been putting Miller out against top comp all season pretty much, whether he's with Trouba or whomever he's with. That gives me some interest in the second line of the Sharks, Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund at 14.9. And unfortunately, that's a little expensive for a team that has a 2.2 total. But they're going to see Zibanejad, Kreider, and Riley Smith, and most likely the Lindgren Trouba pairing. And I know you watched the game the other night because I saw you tweeting about, something that you can't look away from. The two worst Rangers on the ice last game were Mika Zibanejad and Ryan Lindgren. And it wasn't particularly close. So I do have a little bit of interest in Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund. They're fully correlated on the second unit, whatever that means. The issue is the price, $14,900. It's a little bit expensive. If they were $13,000 like Celebrini, Toffoli, Goodrow, I think I would be a little bit more interested. Again, this isn't a single entry thing. You can get at the Rangers on the power play. I don't love the Sharks, obviously, but that Lindgren Trouba pairing is going to be, honestly, it might be the worst pairing in the NHL. So that's why I have a little bit of interest in Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund. This is a Rangers game for me. I have no issue going to Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, 20,400. They've been one of the better 5-on-5 lines in the NHL going back to last year. They've been, Panarin played over 20 minutes last game. Like when Panarin was Zibanejad, they were cutting his minutes, but I don't have a ton of minutes concerns with Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere when they're together. The issue that I'm running into is ownership at 13.8%, especially when you can get a McDavid line right around the same price for less, you know what I mean? Less ownership. And you can get the Wild for less ownership. You can get Tampa for less ownership. You know what I mean? The Rangers are massive favorites. They're like minus 410. So if you want to play the Rangers, I have no issue. I have a little bit of trepidation. However, this is one of the best bounce back spots you can have after having a rough couple games. The Zibanejad, Kreider, Riley Smith line at 11.3% projected ownership. Like, it's fine because you get Zibanejad and Kreider on the power play. This is a great power play matchup. But if I'm going to go into double-digit ownership on a Rangers line, I'm just going to go straight to Panarin. Trocheck, Lafreniere. Hito, Cooley, Kakko is interesting. You made a point to me about how they've been pretty bad without Fox. Now, I think they'll be okay with Jones and Schneider. They're 10-9. They're a line that I would use with Florida 1 if I was playing Florida 1. You know what I mean? I don't think you need a full stack. I think, Hedel, Cooley, 2-man is just fine and go about your day. I don't mind them as a filler. This is a Rangers Panarin line game for me. I don't know if I'm going to get there in single entry. And I do have some interest in Granlund, Zetterlund, and Eklund.
Yeah, for me, it is the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line. This season they're at, I think it's 3.6 goals per 60. Last season they were over 4. Things have definitely cooled off over the last couple of weeks. Again, I've said it repeatedly. I have no idea why they blew up the lines after that 7th game. They lost to Florida 3-1. It's like, okay, your first regulation loss of the season was in the 7th game and you blew up your defense pairs. Like, it just – anyways, that line just has been super elite. Yes, there is a lot of ownership, air quotes, on them at 13.8%. But as you mentioned, it's the top line, which is like $5,500 cheaper, at $5,500 cheaper, isn't that far behind. And Trocheck, they might not get a ton of minutes, but if they don't get a ton of minutes, it's because they're up 6-1. You know what I mean? Like that I think that's really the only minutes concern. I really do like that Rangers line. Like, even if they come in at like 15%, I think they're very much in play. You mentioned they are at minus 410. That was on DK this morning. It's minus 440 now. So I honestly think there's going to be even more ownership on the Rangers than we're projecting. I really do like the Rangers top line here. They are one of the lines I'm considering. On a slate this big, I'm not super concerned if they come in between 15 and 20% on a single entry. Like, I'm going to be honest, it's just that good of a spot. Because, again, San Jose, the big problem for San Jose is that they're one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. They're at 3.8 times shorthanded per game. It's the second most. They're the second most penalized team in the league. And the Rangers have, with the Edmonton power play not being what it is, the Rangers have had arguably the best power play in the league so far this season. Winnipeg or whatever, but I really do like that Rangers top line here. If you want to go down to Hedel, Cooley, Kakko, that is one of those cheapest lines that I was talking about earlier that I do like with Florida. I agree with you. I do think that third pair for the Rangers should be fine. So as long as they don't put the Hedel line out with Trouba and Lindgren, they should be just A-okay. And I'm not super concerned about any matchups from the San Jose side. So I really do like the Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line here. I think Rangers 3 is very much in play if you want to go play an expensive Florida line. Honestly, nothing for me from the San Jose side. I don't like it's just a price thing. As you mentioned, that Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund line is nearly $15K on DraftKings here tonight. We'll get to these games later, but you look in that $15K range. You have Seattle, you have the Islanders, you have Dallas, you have Vancouver. Obviously some of those are higher owned spots, but again, 5, 6, 7% ownership in single entry doesn't bother me. So I really don't have a lot of interest in San Jose here outside of 150 maxing. For me, this is all about the Panarin line.
Yeah, and we have a buddy who we've known for about 10 years now. When there's a team minus 400 or wider, he goes, play those guys in DFS, but bet the Sharks. Because,
I mean, got a hedge.
Yeah. St. Louis Blues, God help us, with a 2.6 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Sabres have a 3.3. Tage Thompson is out tonight with an injury. We have chalk Buffalo night upon us. Buffalo running Peterka, Cousins, Quinn, Tuck, McLeod, Benson, and then Zucker, Greenway, Krebs. Blues, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Neighbors. Shannon's on the second line. That's really all you need to know. Peterka, Cousins, Quinn, 12,500, 6.3% top two stack, 24.1% projected ownership. Man, Cousins hasn't even had a great season to start. Jack Quinn has been healthy scratched at times this season. Peterka, he was hurt, but he's been very good this season. The thing is, I always try to think of nice ways to say it, but the Blues suck. So that ownership is insane, but it's a very good matchup, and you can play them with anybody. I think that's the reason they're so high owned. Now, I have a little bit of trepidation about full stacking here. It is a very good power play matchup. The Blues don't take a ton of penalties, but I'm a little bit concerned about the power play without Tage Thompson.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's is it a good power play matchup if you don't have Tage Thompson?
And 24% for a line that doesn't have a huge sample also worries me. I think I'm going to pass on them in single entry. If you want to play them, that's your right as a DFS player. I don't think I'm going to get there. This is one of those spots that feels like old Nashville chalk. You know what I mean? It's one of those spots where I'm like, if they burn me, hats off to you. I'll come back tomorrow and try to hit the nuts. I just cannot fathom playing this line at that ownership when there's so many issues and your best player's out. They're all nice players, but I don't know. I think I would go to McLeod, Benson, to Alex Tuck. They're the same price, and they're getting a fourth of the ownership. Now, Benson had his issues as well this season. He's been healthy, scratched a bunch like Quinn, but Ryan McLeod, I don't want to say he's one of the most underrated players in the NHL, but he's underrated from the sense that he doesn't get appreciated for the role that he plays on this team. You look at his numbers last year with the Oilers, they weren't great, but you look at some of the underlying metrics, he was one of their best players. And you throw him with Alex Tuck, who's probably their best winger. Maybe you can say Peterka. Obviously, Tage Thompson's out. I don't mind McLeod Tuck here. I don't think you need a full stack. There's no matchups that worry me from the Blues. I'm fading the Cousins line. I'm going to go to McLeod Tuck if I'm playing Buffalo. On the St. Louis side, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Neighbors would be the line for me at 14,000. This is one of those lines I'd much rather play than the Sharks. 3.8% top two stacks, 7% projected ownership. It has negative leverage, but they're fully correlated. Buffalo, not exactly world beaters defensively. So honestly, my favorite line in this game is the Blues top line. I'm fading that Cousins line. If I'm playing the Sabres, it would be McLeod Tuck.
Yeah. To get to your point about Dylan Cousins, him and Jack Quinn have 140 plus minutes together at 5-on-5 this season. Expected goals 4 per 60, under 2. Shot share percentage under 44%. Like, this line without Peterka has been getting outplayed basically all season. Like you said, Jack Quinn has been a healthy scratch. Now, I do think Peterka helps them, but do I want to bet that he helps them enough to make them at least an above average line at 24% ownership? It's like, no. Again, like I completely agree with you. Like, if Peterka, Cousins, Quinn go out and get like 5 goals tonight, tip my hat. I'll wake up tomorrow and reserve some more lineups. Like, that's just kind of how it is. Talk McLeod and Benson is kind of where my interest would go. Here's an interesting thing about Benson. I was looking at some of the passing data today. He actually has the highest rate of high danger passes at 5-on-5 of any Sabres forward this season, either going across the slot or from behind the net into the slot. I do think he's the kind of playmaker that could help Alex Tuck a little bit. And Tuck has been moved to the top power play unit with Tage Thompson now, so at least you get one guy on the power play. I agree with you. It's Tuck, McLeod, and Benson for me, or else I move along. And I also agree with you that my favorite line in this game is St. Louis. It's like you get a perfectly correlated top line going up against Buffalo, who has been fine, but again is missing their best player. And they're only $1,500 more expensive than either of those Sabres lines, and they're coming in at 7% ownership. And again, they're perfectly correlated. That St. Louis line without Robert Thomas this season, Buchnevich and Kyrou are at 3.8 goals per 60. That's really good. Now, they're doing that shooting like 14%, but the top guys for St. Louis typically do have high on-ice shooting percentages. They're probably going to get a lot of minutes here tonight. Like, I don't know why St. Louis would go down and give, Radek Faksa a ton of minutes or something like that. I guess we'll find out. That St. Louis top line, 3.8% top 2 stack, not high, only 7% ownership. A lot more reasonable than Buffalo. I like St. Louis won the best in this game. If I were to play anything from the Buffalo side, it would probably be that McLeod line. This is probably a slate where I'm just going to be like, I'm fading the Sabres, and if they put up 6 goals, so be it. But I would rather play St. Louis here. Like, we always say that ownership isn't everything. When you have 20 teams on the slate and an uncorrelated bad line is going to be in 1 out of every 4 lineups, I think that's one where you can say, I'll just take my chances that they don't pull through here tonight.
Yeah, just quick question. What movie are you watching when the Cousins line scores 4 goals?
That's a good question. I actually have to get to Arcane season 1 or season 2 on Netflix. The new episodes drop tomorrow, so I gotta finish that up here tonight.
There you go.
So yeah, so like if Dylan Cousins buries me in the first period, I'll be watching Netflix.
There's going to be a couple people in our chat who build a bunch of Cousins lineups out of spite as a slander lineup and win all the money. Boston Bruins with a 2.6 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.3. Dallas going Robertson, Hintz, Dodonov, Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoff, and Jamie Benn. Boston running back, Pasternak, Zaka, Geeky, Marchand, Lindholm, Brazeau, Coyle, Tyler Johnson, Trent Frederick. Boston made a comeback against the Blues. The Blues even scored 2 power play goals against the Bruins, which is breaking news. That was the first power play goals they scored all season without Robert Thomas, and no shock, it came against the Bruins, who are the most penalized team in the league. I'm kind of in a conundrum what to do with Boston here because it's not a very good matchup. I do like the Zaka Pasternak combo. I don't, I'm a Geeky guy, but like Morgan Geeky, Connor Geeky, Kevin Geeky, Frederick Geeky. There probably is a Frederick Geeky, but like he probably shouldn't be in a top line in the NHL. Like, he was healthy scratched until he came onto this top line. Fine with the Pasternak one-off. Lindholm, Marchand, Brazeau is like interesting from the fact that like they're going to see Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, and that's the line you can kind of beat Dallas. And in a very small sample, they've been good. I don't know if it's noise or what, but like Marchand and Lindholm do seem to have a little bit of chemistry. I'm not saying go play them. I'm just reporting the news that like they've been good together. I don't particularly love Boston in this spot. If anything, it would be Zacha Pasternak or Pasternak one off. The Dallas side is much more interesting to me. It would be Wyatt Johnston, Stankov, and Ben. 14,000, 2.8 or 2.5% top two stack, 3.8% projected ownership. Getting less ownership than that Blues line. The Blues line. They have a higher total. They're at home. They dictate matchups. Boston takes the most penalties of anyone in the league. I'm fine with Johnston, Stankov, and Ben. I also do like Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment from the fact that they are fully correlated on the power play. That power play unit has been the better unit so far this season. I didn't see anything on Dumba. I'm hoping he's not playing here tonight.
Yeah, he's healthy scratched. He's getting
this
scratched.
Is a Dallas game for me. Yeah. I prefer Johnson, Stankov, and Ben just from the 5-on-5 matchups, but Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment at 15,000 fully correlated on the power play unit that has been the better unit. I am interested in. I'll never say no to Hinson Robertson. I'm not a Dodonov guy at this point in his career, so for less, I go to Wyatt Johnston. For a couple hundred more bucks, I'll get the fully correlated line.
I'll be quick with Boston. I don't have any interest in playing them here tonight. No Hampus Lindholm. You could make an argument Hampus Lindholm has been Boston's best player this year, forward or defense. Considering that he's not going to be in the lineup, and this has not been a good offensive team besides that. Like, I'll never say don't play David Pasternak as a one-off. He's a one-off candidate every single game, no matter the matchup, no matter the lines, no matter who's in the lineup. As far as full stacking goes, I just have no interest in Boston at all. For Dallas, it would be going back to the Marchment line. I know I'm kind of pushing my luck trying to get Lightning to strike twice here, but it is a really good power play matchup, as you mentioned. Boston, the most penalized in the team, 4.2 times shorthanded per game. It's about 30% higher than the league average. They've given up 19 power play goals against in 17 games. And as you mentioned, that Dallas second Dallas power play unit has been much better than the first. It hasn't even been close, to be honest. Again, it's weird that we kind of slandered Joe Pavelski all last season, and now he's not there for the power play. And that power play's been pretty god awful. So maybe the joke's on us a little bit, but that Dallas second unit is generating nearly 160 shot attempts per 60 minutes of power play time. 110, even 120. 120 would be really high paced on the power play. They're at 160. They are generating at will against any penalty kill. And they are perfectly correlated, and they split the power play time. I don't mind any of the Dallas lines really, but Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment are perfectly correlated. They've been the better power play unit all season long, and it's not just a shooting percentage thing. They are generating a ton of shots, and they're getting the most penalized team in the league that just lost, if not their best players, certainly their best defenseman. I think it's Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment for me, and just hoping that they can do it again in the same week. Probably not, but in that 14 to 16K range, they are one of the lines that I'm really looking at here tonight.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't expect a 4-point first period from Mason Marchment again, but I do think that they can, at their price, they need 2 goals and 3 assists, and you're laughing.
So a 4-point second period then.
Right. Okay. We are on the same page. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.4 total. Heading into Minnesota, the Wild have a 3.6. I'll be quick on Montreal. The only interest I would have would be MME the top lines, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Doc, they're 13,200 and fully correlated. You know what I mean? And they're going to play a bunch of minutes. That's the reason to play them. They're priced as a filler and they're fully correlated. But other than that, this is a brutal matchup for them. My interest is on the Minnesota side. Shocking. I know. I think, because there isn't like a super expensive pay up option outside of Florida one. I guess you could go like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, something like that, and be really expensive. This is a very good power play spot. Like, I think you're fine full stacking Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi, 21,000. At that point, like, I'd rather play the Rangers top line or Panarin line, the McDavid line, et cetera, et cetera. I think I would create some sort of really expensive Minnesota power play stack. And for me, that's going to be Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy. That's just what I like to do. Like, I think the Minnesota second line is fine, but like, I can't stack Minnesota without Kaprizov. He just plays so many minutes and he's their best player. So I'm going to do some sort of expensive power play stack of Minnesota if I'm playing them. Again, either the top two lines are fine. I just have a hard time full stacking each of these lines when this is a great power play matchup. So Minnesota power play, Montreal 1 if they get into your crunches or optimizers or whatever, but not running out to play the Habs here.
Yeah, I'll be quick on Montreal. I don't really have any interest. Like, Minnesota is arguably the best defensive 5-on-5 team in the league. Like, it's them, Los Angeles maybe. The only reason I have any interest in Montreal is that the Minnesota penalty kill is really bad. Like, it's worse than Montreal's. The issue is that Minnesota really just doesn't take a ton of penalties. They're 2.4 times shorthanded per game. I think it's like third or fourth fewest in the league. Montreal does draw a reasonably high rate of power plays, but you're really hoping for Montreal to get there on the power play. I think if I were to play any Habs tonight, it's kind of like the Flyers, where it's a bad match. The Flyers have a bad match. I think a bad matchup at 5-on-5, but a good matchup on the power play. It's kind of the same thing for Montreal here. So, like, I think a one-off Slavkovsky is fine if you want to pay down. If you want to spend up, I think a one-off Caulfield is fine. Like, those are the guys I would kind of target because of the power play matchup. But other than that, I don't have interest in stacking. For me, this is a Minnesota 1 game. I really do like Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi. I see your point about taking out Rossi and putting in like Eriksson Ek or Boldy or something, making an expensive power play stack. I have no issue with that. Montreal's at 3.5 times shorthanded per game. They are one of the most penalized teams in the league, currently sitting 7th. The penalty kill besides that has been okay, definitely not good, but they just take so many penalties. Here's the other thing, is Minnesota does a pretty good job of just sending out the Joel Eriksson Ek line or even the third line against opposing top lines. That means Kaprizov and Zuccarello are going to go up against like Jake Evans and Alex Newhook, or like whatever Montreal decides to throw together on the third. Like, there is nothing in that Montreal middle six that can slow that line down. So I really, really do like Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi. I would probably play them above Tampa Bay here tonight. I would play them above Florida. The only other line that's in that price range that I'm really considering besides them is Rangers and Edmonton. So that's kind of the decision tree that I'm going through right now. But that Minnesota top line has I think it's the third highest top 2 stack on the night, 16.1%, 21K, ownership under 8%. Like, this is a team. They started the day with a 3.9 total, the same as the Rangers. Now it's down to 3.6. But that's still one of the highest totals on the board, and they're coming in with single-digit ownership. Like, I really do like Minnesota 1 here. If you want to go to Minnesota 2, you want to make a power play stack, no issues with those things. But I think this is a game where that top line has tremendous 5-on-5 matchups and could see a lot of ice time on the power play here. So Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi for me.
Nashville Predators with a 2.8 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 3.6. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent, Hopkins, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. Nashville going Forsberg, Stamkos.
Just to cut you off there.
It's Skinner. It's Skinner.
No, Arvidsson's out. So they're going 11-7 here tonight.
11-7. That makes what I want to do with Edmonton a little bit easier. So here we are again. Edmonton playing Nashville. Draisaitl kills the Predators. Here's the thing. Now with 11-7, you're going to see McDavid take shifts with everybody. McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins are his line mates. 20,600, 17.5% top two stack, 9.1% projected ownership. We've seen that line over $25,000 at times last season. McDavid has awoken from his slumber. Hyman is still sleeping. But eventually, he's going to wake up. I'm fine going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins. I think, with them going 11-7, going something like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, perfectly fine here. Cliffy will tell you, Nashville, one of the slowest teams in the league. Edmonton, one of the fastest. Elite power play. It is starting to wake up. Bouchard bombs has awoken. They just need Hyman to there's a bad joke in there somewhere. I'm not going to make it, but bust out. There we go. McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins would probably be my favorite stack, or McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, something like that. They're getting under double-digit ownership. Maybe it creeps up. You're going to see McDavid probably push 17 to 20% ownership on his own. It's just always what it is. Like, you take the ownership of the line and you double it for McDavid, essentially. But there's plenty of ways to, get a lower owned stack. The Nashville side is a little bit more interesting from the sense that you have to think about it. Like with Edmonton, you just plug in McDavid, Draisaitl, and you go about your day. Nashville won at 18-9 on the road is kind of priced in no man's land, right? You have that Edmonton line a little bit more expensive. The Rangers a little bit more expensive above them. Tampa, it's only like $1,300 more expensive. They are fully correlated on the power play. They have a very good power play. That's about all they have right now. So I don't mind Nashville 1. I don't know if I'll get there in single entry. They are circled on my list. I probably would just go to Edmonton at that point, you know what I mean, for $1,700 more. But they are interesting to me. I think Evangelista, Parssinen, and Tomasino as a super cheap filler, if you're power play stacking the Wild, power play stacking the Rangers, something like that. You don't need, all three of them. You could do like Parssinen and Evangelista. I think that would be fine. But obviously my favorite play in this game are the Oilers.
Yeah, I really do like the Edmonton top line here. They're up to 75 minutes together on the season, 3.9 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60. The power play is the one thing that is a little bit concerning. It hasn't really been all that good this year, to be honest. The other thing is the Oilers aren't drawing very many power plays at all. I think that's one thing that's really kind of, it's not killing their upside, but they're at 2.5 power plays per game so far this season. It's one of the lowest rates in the league. That is a little bit concerning to me, but they've been really good at 5-on-5. That Nashville has not been that good at 5-on-5. I think that's one thing, Nashville, I think, has been a bit unlucky by their shooting percentage. I think that's something that, kind of goes without saying. But Nashville has a worse expected goals against at 5-on-5 than Calgary and Detroit. So, kind of tells you where Nashville has been defensively. I really do like the Edmonton top line here. The thing is, they're in the same price range as the Rangers and Minnesota. Those are kind of the three lines that I'm really looking at here tonight. I haven't decided who I'm going to play yet. The top 2 percentage would edge towards Edmonton slightly, but I do think they're one of the expensive lines to consider on the slate here tonight. There are no real matchup concerns. 5-on-5 penalty kill. Nashville's penalty kill, one of the reasons it's succeeding is that they have a 941 save percentage on the penalty kill. That's probably going to drop 50 points over the rest of the season. I just wish Edmonton was drawing more power plays. That's kind of the only issue here. But I really do like Edmonton 1. The interesting thing would be to like take out Nugent Hopkins and put in Draisaitl or something like that. Because like you said, McDavid is going to get like some spin with the bottom 6 forwards. I think another thing they're going to do is, unless it's like a 5-0 games, you're going to see Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid for a number of shifts here tonight at 5-on-5. So I do think, if you want to go really expensive and stack those guys together, I think that's perfectly fine. But yeah, Edmonton 1 for me. The interesting thing about the Nashville side is like they're kind of in no man's land a little bit when you look at their price. Like the Nashville top line, 18,900. The closest line above them is $1,300 more expensive. Like there's not a single line combination between 19 and 20K here tonight. So like there is a reasonable gap. And if I'm looking at the lines in that 18K range, you're looking at New Jersey, Philly, or Minnesota too. I think out of those lines, I would probably rather play Nashville. So like if you're looking for a line in that specific price range, I think they're fine. 3 expected goals per 60 in a limited sample here together. They do all play on the power play. One thing I am concerned about is that these guys are not getting the ice time they were getting earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, like Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg were playing like 20, 21 minutes, which was higher than even last year. Lately, like those two and Stamkos have been like 17 and a half, 18 and a half minutes. It's really not great. That's definitely not what you want. I do think that they're playable if you're looking in that specific price range. But if I'm taking one line out of this game, it's definitely Edmonton 1.
Just a quick rebuttal to your Edmonton power play concerns. It's priced in, right? If they're rolling on the power play, they're 30 to 40% more expensive. So
yeah, but it's not only that, it's that they're just not drawing a ton of power plays either, right? Like, if they weren't generating a ton but getting 3.7 power plays per game, that'd be one thing. But 2.5 power plays is literally one of the lowest rates in the league.
That is fair. Oh, yay. The New York Islanders with a 2.5 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.1, as our astound goalie picker, Daily Deposit Frostback, so pointed out. It is Semyon Varlamov in net for the Islanders and not Ilya Sokorokin. He's been kind of bad this season. Pettersson, Garland, DeBrusk, Miller, Suter, Letterkenny. I'm calling him Letterkenny just because every time I see it, it reminds me that I need to start watching that show. Islanders going Horvat, Lee, Pajot, Nelson, Palmieri, Sipelkoff. Faded that Pettersson, Garland, DeBrusk line for that JT Miller line the other night. Did it work out? Nope. That was one of Pettersson's best games all season. It kind of feels bad going back to them at 12.7% projected ownership, but Pettersson actually looked good for one of the only times this season. He has good numbers with Garland. I don't mind going back there, but for $1,500 less and half the ownership, I think I'm going back to Miller, Suter, Lekkery, Maki. I'm probably butchering that. I'm just phonetically saying it. But, for $1,500 less and for the same reasons of the other night, I kind of prefer Miller, Suter. You know what I mean? So Pettersson line, completely fine here. But you do get Miller and Suter on the top power play unit. The issue is the Islanders don't take penalties. Like, literally none. They're one of the least – they might be the least penalized team in the league or the second least penalized team in the league. So, that the issue is they have trouble killing him. I'm going to go to the cheaper line of Miller, Suter, Lecker, Maki. You're fine going back to Pettersson, Garland, DeBrusk. On the Islanders side, it would be Nelson, Palmieri, Sipelkoff, but that's an MME play only for me.
Yeah, 2.1 times shorthanded per game so far this season for the Islanders. It's the lowest on the slate, at least. So, yes, they don't take a ton of penalties. It's not like Vancouver's power play has been like super great or anything either. One thing I want to talk about is like I was looking at some of Pettersson's skating numbers because we talked about that a couple weeks ago and how they were down from last year. They have been getting better. They're not quite up to last year's, but they have been improving. So hopefully whatever was bothering them has improved. And I also want to mention Eric Brandstrom. Like, a big problem with Vancouver in the first couple weeks of the season was they were getting caved in whenever Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek weren't on the ice. Like, that has not been the case with Eric Brandstrom in the lineup. In fact, I was looking at Garland and Pettersson's numbers since Brandstrom got called up, which was 4 weeks ago today, actually. 3.1 expected goals for, 1.8 against with Garland and Pettersson on the ice. They've been really, really good. I would probably go to Pettersson, Garland, and DeBrusk. The reason is this. I still think Lekkerimaki is kind of a question mark. And Pius Suter, he's, I've had him in my lineup for some goals this season, and God bless him for it, but he's typically not a guy that can really score goals. With that Vancouver third pair honestly playing so well, and it's basically their second pair at this point, I do like going back to Pettersson, Garland, DeBrusk. There is a lot of ownership, as you mentioned. It's not insane, like Buffalo insane, but it is 12.7%, 6.5% top two stack. They're not a line that I'm going out of my way to play, but I think if I were to play anything from the Vancouver side, that's what I would play here tonight. On the Islanders side, it would be going to their second line because they do send out JT Miller and Quinn Hughes against opposing top lines quite a bit when they're at home. I got to assume that means Horvat, Lee, and Pajot here tonight. It's a bad matchup for the Islanders. Vancouver doesn't take a ton of penalties either. Vancouver's penalty kill is very, very good. So I would go to the Islanders' second line. 3.5 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60 so far this season. Palmieri, Nelson still getting around 19 minutes a game with Barzal out of the lineup. Perfectly correlated on the power play, even though it's not a great power play matchup. I think that Islanders' second line is kind of in play here. They're not getting a ton of ownership, 3.6% against 2.7% top two stack. But if I'm going to play a line in that 14K range here tonight, I'm going to the Pettersson line. I wasn't really on Vancouver when I thought Sorokin would be started. Now that we know it's Varlamov, I have a little bit more interest in the Canucks.
Yeah, same. Gonna have to circle back after the show. Chicago Blackhawks. What a late hammer this is. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.7 total heading into Seattle. I really just almost said the Mariners, but it is the Kraken, have a 3.3. Chicago going Bedard, Teravainen, Kurashev, Foligno, Bertuzzi, Hall, Donato, Dickinson, Anderson. Seattle going McCann, Beniers, Eberle, Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz, Wright, Tolvin, and Burakovsky. I have some issues. I wanted to play Chicago here tonight. Not like itching to play Chicago, but like Seattle sends out Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz against top comp, and they have been so bad this season. But the issue that I'm running into is I can't believe this is going to be a phrase that I'm uttering in almost 2025. I wish Nick Foligno was on the top line instead of Kurashev. Like, going back to last year, Bedard and Kurashev don't have great numbers together. Bedard and Foligno do. I'm still okay with Chicago one here in MME. No one's playing them. You get Bedard and Teravainen on the top power play unit. Like, Bjorkstrand, Stevenson, Schwartz have been pretty bad defensively. They have a bad penalty kill. Like, I think what I just do on Chicago now is just one off Bedard, honestly. Like, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to play Bedard if I'm going to play Chicago. Seattle side, like, I wish wasn't interesting, but it kind of is because they do send out that Stevenson, Bjorkstrand, Schwartz line against top comp, and Bedard and Kurashev have awful defensive numbers together dating back to last year. Now, that line has been awful, and Stevenson has not been great. I think like a one-off Bjorkstrand is fine, a one-off Schwartz is fine. If I'm going to full stack line in this game, it's going to be McCann, Beniers, Eberle. They're going to go out, they're going to avoid the Dickinson line for the most part. They'll see most of Bertuzzi, Foligno, Hall. they're kind of in the boat of Ottawa. If I'm building mid-range stacks, like Seattle would be one of those lines that I would stack with Ottawa on a mid-range build. I don't think I would, run out to play Seattle in any other kind of build really if I'm full stacking. But in a mid-range build, I think they're fine. Seattle 1's my favorite line in this game. Obviously, one off Bedard is fine, and a one off Bjorkstrand is okay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in Chicago here. Big problem is the lack of power play correlation, right? You get Teravainen and Bedard on the top line. That's okay. But you only have Bertuzzi on the second line, Donato in the bottom six. If anything, I agree with you. It would be going to the Chicago top line. Kurashev, Bedard, and Teravainen. The thing is like at a similar price, I'd just rather go play Seattle one. That's just kind of the way that I look at it. I was looking at some passing data this morning. You can make a pretty good argument that the three of the four best playmakers Seattle has had so far this season are all on the same line. McCann, Beniers, Eberle, and McCann still shoots the puck quite a bit. They do have a 3.3 total. They're not coming in with that much ownership. 2.3% ownership, 3.2% top two stack. That would be the line that I have interest in stacking here. I don't have a lot of interest in stacking the Seattle depth in particular in this matchup. Now, Chicago's penalty kill has been good, but we never stack Seattle because of their power play, because it is one thing that Seattle just doesn't really excel with. It is one reason why I would have interest in like a Connor Bedard one-off or even a Tyler Bertuzzi one-off, something like that, because Seattle's penalty kill has not been very good. Chicago's power play has been kind of fine. But if I'm stacking anything, it's Seattle one, but just in general, not a game that's really drawing my interest in any particular spot.
Yeah, and another issue, like for me with Bedard, is his minutes haven't been great. The last four games, 17 minutes, 18 minutes, 16 minutes, and he's 7,600. You know what I mean? You can get Draisaitl for 500 more. You know what I mean? You can get Barkov below him, Trocheck. You know what I mean? He's kind of priced out of being anything other than a contrarian one-off. I'm glad we talked about that game. Let's talk about defensemen. Top of the board, Yossi, Hughes, Hedman, Dobson, Bouchard, Montour. Yossi's a little bit expensive for my taste. I think the two guys that I'm looking at in the top range are Bouchard and Montour. I think Quinn Hughes is fine, but those would be the guys at the top that I like. I think, Morrissey's always in play in the mid-range, and I think Fox is an interesting play at 5,700 tonight, but spending all the way up, I don't think I'm getting there. What are you thinking?
Yeah, at the very top, like you said, Yossi 7,800, Hughes 7,300. By stochastic projections, Yossi is first by projections, but he is so much more expensive than some of the other guys, like $1,000, $1,500 cheaper than him, that the value really isn't that great. I'm going to be honest, the guy at the top of my list is Rasmus Dahlin. He's up to 6,400. Like, I know that, we said Buffalo's probably going to be pretty chalky. Like, he's going to be pretty chalky, but as a one-off defenseman, like, that doesn't really concern me at all. And, Dahlin had a slow start to the season, but I was looking at his game log, and man, like, I hate to be a game log. Yeah, I hate to be a game log warrior, but it's something like 18 blocked shots in his last 10 games. Something like it's 30 some shots in his last 10 games. With like 3 goals and 7 assists. Like, he's just been putting up across the board. That's kind of the thing. And in a really good home matchup, like, I really do like Dahlin. Evan Bouchard, he's back in play again. Don't think he's going to put up 43 points again, but he's certainly back in play. Brandon Montour, I think, is probably my favorite play in that Seattle-Chicago game, just generally speaking. Mid-price range, Mike Matheson is projecting well enough for his price. I don't really have a ton of interest in him, though. Adam Fox, I think, would be one of the mid-price, like lower mid-price or higher mid-price guys, that I would have interest in. Thomas Chabot is still getting 23 minutes a game, even with Artem Zub back. Not a bad matchup for him to rack up some peripherals. Brock Faber certainly in a good power play matchup at home for Minnesota. Justin Falk, Buffalo is what it is. I don't know what to say. Like, Devin Levi hasn't been all that great so far this season. So if he doesn't have a good game, I don't mind Falk here. There are some cheap guys that we probably should have interest in, like Balinskis again, Artem Zub, our boy. Don't mind him. Boston is kind of interesting because without Lindholm, there are more minutes up for grabs. Now, Lindholm is a left shot defenseman. Sometimes he plays the right side. I think Brandon Carlo probably sees the biggest minutes increase, but Nikita Zadorov is a left shot, is one of, on the left side, it's basically down to Zadorov and Mason Lohrei, and they don't really seem to be enamored with the way Lohrei's played in the first 6 weeks. So Zadorov might see a decent bump here. Zach Jones projecting reasonably well. I'll mention Jacob Bryson for Buffalo because not only is Matthias Samuelsson out, they're scratching someone else. I forget who it was, but Bryson is. I think Bryson is going to probably be their number 4. They're scratching Jokiharju. That's who it is.
Yeah.
So Bryson might be their number 4 defenseman or something like that here tonight. Alex Vlasic, always like him as long as he's under 4K. Keandre Miller, moving up to the top pair with Adam Fox, that seems like the best possible spot for him to be to actually do something offensively for fantasy. I'll mention Jack Thompson, San Jose, getting some power play time. Bowen Byram might have to get some more ice time here tonight with Samuelsson and Jokiharju both out, and Emil Andre, again, power play for Philly.
Yeah, all the Buffalo I prefer all the Buffalo defensemen than their actual forwards here tonight. Bowen Byram, 3,600. His minutes have been insane. Owen Power's minutes have been insane. They're kind of doing what Colorado does, play their top 4 guys a ton, and then their third pair just doesn't play. So anyone in their top 4 is interesting to me. Goalies, we'll see you tomorrow, guys. If I'm spending up, it would be in the 8K range. It would be for Joey Decord or Jake Ottinger. In the mid range, I don't particularly love the mid range. It would probably be Vasilevsky or Bob. I think Olmark's fine too. I do have a little bit of volume concern at that price. And then if I'm spending down, Bennington at 7,100 against Buffalo without Tage Thompson. I know it's not how you leverage an NHL DFS, but and goalie ownership doesn't really matter. The points do, but Bennington's going to be low owned tonight because Buffalo's going to be chalk. And I honestly don't mind the matchup at his price at 7,100. So Bennington would be my spend down guy.
Yeah, Bennington was one of the cheap guys that I was definitely considering here tonight. Without Thompson, I'm not really that worried about Buffalo's offense. Jeremy Swayman, he's a little bit more expensive, 7,400, but he's the guy that I'm also considering. I wonder if he doesn't see a lot more shots now with Hampus Lindholm out of the lineup. I don't mind, I'm not probably paying all the way up for Shesterkin or Gustafsson or something, but Kevin Lankinen, 8,100 at home. Against the Islanders, we know the Islanders have struggled to score at times. They've been a little bit better honestly, they've been better since Matt Barzal got hurt, which is kind of funny. But I don't mind Lankinen at home here tonight. Linus Ullmark as well, 7,900 at home to Philly. Had him circled. As long as Philly doesn't do a ton of damage on the power play, I think he should be fine. So basically, it came down to Ullmark, Lankinen, Bennington, and Swayman for me. Just depends what the rest of my lineup looks like.
Again, if you like somebody, you play him. Unless Frostback's playing him, then you fade him. I'm kind of kidding. He's been on a decent goalie run, though he did have Thompson last night, and he kind of blew it late. But he's come out of his funk a little bit. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go expensive. I'm going to go chalk. I'm going to go to Minnesota, and I'm going to Mr. Kaprizov.
Yeah, I love that pick. I'm going to go weird because that's who I am. And going against some Buffalo chalk here, I'm going Jordan Kyrou.
All right. I like it. Buffalo could really screw up our night here tonight.
Oh, I can't wait. No matter what we do, that game's going to just shoot me right between the eyes. But anyway, we will be back tomorrow. Another mid-sized slate. Good luck, everybody. Again, thank you for tuning in. Almost 400 of you guys in here or gals. I don't want to discriminate. Tuning in for a Thursday afternoon show. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you tomorrow and win some money.
Good luck tonight, everyone.